Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And I just want to do a quick introduction about our speaker, our presenter for this topic. Chris Snyder is the Senior Community Manager for Shopify Spaces and leads their outreach and community partnership team. After spending 15 years in both small business and corporate regional management, Chris has owned and operated nearly a dozen small businesses, both in the United States and abroad. Based in Los Angeles, he has worked with Shopify Spaces for the last 3 years, using his experiences and background to help others succeed. So real excited to be able to bring Chris with us today and share a little bit of knowledge for us that are interested in moving from an offline format to an online format. So Chris, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Let me share this and why it's happening. All right, cool. You should all be able to see my screen, I hope. We continue our theme of good tech. So it's a really small group today, so this is kind of cool. We can be a little bit intimate. We can just kind of have a chat back and forth, and feel free to ask questions. Whatever, something on the screen you want to know more about, let's talk about it. What I do for Shopify is my job is to reach into communities and reach into groups of people and organizations and things like that to provide resources to anyone who needs them. And that could be, hell, it could be a webinar, it could be a class, it could be a one-on-one session, it might be in person talking about point of sale, it can be almost anything. This isn't a sales presentation, and you'll probably hear me say that a few times, but I'd be the world's worst salesperson. I'm terrible at it. However, I do strongly believe that rising tides raises all ships with small business communities. And if we can help anybody strengthen or get better or start a business or launch entrepreneurship or have a better life, then, as you do that across communities, everything kind of gets better, right? Poverty gets better, cities get better, neighborhoods get better, and all those kinds of things. So that's really, really the reason I'm here. And today we're going to talk about offline to online and kind of a little bit of getting started with Shopify. What is Shopify? What is e-commerce? But really the takeaway is, why do you need a platform? Like, why do you need something like a Shopify or a Wix or a BigCommerce or whatever? And what does it really mean to be offline and online? And that's kind of where we'll start with this. I'm going to shut off my camera so I'm not distracting you, flopping around my head and everything here. Where's my thing at? There we go. All right, cool. So offline to online, the first part of this that always comes up is, what does that really mean? Well, most people say they're online, right? Most businesses say, hey, I'm online, I have a Facebook page. But that's not really good enough. That's not going to get it done in terms of a business thing. What we're talking about with offline to online is we're talking about maybe moving into more what we call an omni-channel solution. And what that really means in a nutshell is you're going to be wherever your customers are. So if they're going to be on TikTok, you're going to be able to have, engage them on TikTok. If they're on Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest or Etsy or Walmart.com or Amazon or anywhere else, you're going to be able to integrate to engage with them through integrations. You're going to be able to take payments, find out data from them, but you're only going to have one thing to manage. And that's kind of the point of having these platforms. So, what is Shopify? It's a tough thing to answer. 5 years ago, I would have said it's an e-commerce platform that allows you to sell some stuff. Right? Well, that's cool, but it's changed, and 2020 really accelerated all that. Essentially, it's an operating system for a business, for lack of a better term. It can help power your point of sale. So if you're doing a pop-up, like at a church or a flea market or selling to some friends at a house party, it can connect your business with all the different social medias and marketplaces and the Etsy's and the Walmart.coms of the world. It can allow you to sell things. Sure. It can allow you to do email marketing and send out emails. It can allow you to have pages on a website where you can share your story and about you and what your business is all about and what your visions are and dreams are and hopes and all that good stuff, as well as all your policies and all that. So it's really every facet of your business kind of rolled into one little package. And that's kind of what this little cartoon, laser pointers on, check that out. That's kind of what, here I am sitting on the bench. That's kind of what this little cartoon is showing you here. Technically speaking, like the Wikipedia definition would be we're a cloud-based multi-channel commerce platform designed to help you run your business. But, what does that mean? Essentially, when you look at this picture, this is a good illustration here. So, you got a pop up, you got a Facebook page, and you're going to sell and engage customers on Facebook. So you're not just posting at them, you're able to engage with them, and then they can buy things through your Facebook page. You can integrate with Amazon, sell things on Amazon. You got a brick and mortar, maybe for a pop up or something like that. You have your online store. It's kind of like a wagon wheel where your online store is the hub of your wagon wheel, and then the spokes going out from there. Those are all your different, we call them sales channels, the different ways you're going to engage with your customers, and you're going to take payments. You're going to get paid. You're going to get some cash. You're going to make some sales. The reason this is important, well, 2020 really taught us this. If all you have is this brick and mortar right here, and that door gets closed because of COVID, it's a bad day and it's a bad year. And a lot of businesses lost their business, unfortunately, because of that. But if you had, you have this, but you also have Amazon and Facebook and, your online store and TikTok and, on and on and on. Suddenly closing one door isn't as impactful as closing, 10 doors would have been. So you're able to close one door and still thrive, still function. You still have all your data. Because what happened, I spent the first 6 months of COVID talking to businesses that, hey, Chris, we have $1 million business. We had to close our doors because of COVID. I have a Facebook page. I don't really do anything with it. I have a website I haven't touched in 5 years. How do I get my in-person customers to start buying from me online? And the answer is you don't. It doesn't work that way. It's not like a switch you can throw and suddenly all your people in the store go online. It's not how it works, unfortunately. So it was a really painful 6 months of having these really tough conversations, and a lot of businesses realizing that they hadn't done enough previously to really establish and future proof their business. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. So there's a lot of moving parts to business. I've owned a ton of small businesses. None of them have been easy. Um, everything from small online things to, larger businesses. And they all have challenges. But the one thing is that no matter the size of the business, whether it's just a small thing you're running out of your garage or it's a corporation, there's a lot of moving parts. There's just a ton. And there's moving parts that you don't even know moved until you get into it. And suddenly you're like, what is that? That's a thing? I didn't know that was a thing. Um, Back in the day when I was running some early businesses, you had to literally go to your Facebook page and do Facebook, your Instagram page and do Instagram, your YouTube page and do YouTube. You had to have it go to Google Analytics and look at analytics. You had to do all these different things separately. It was like, and then, funnel everything into QuickBooks. So you had some kind of bookkeeping, and it was like running 8 different businesses. It was really, really challenging. And if you missed one or you didn't get to one or you forgot the password to one, it was this whole thing. Like you're kind of handicapped in this area. What Shopify has done and some of the other platforms have done is they've kind of put all this together through integrations, which I think is really, really cool. Something I wish I would have had back in my day here. But essentially, everything is going to be in one place. So your analytics, your marketing, your bookkeeping, your customer data, your order data, your shipping data, like everything is in one place on one little sexy dashboard. So it's so much easier to go to one place and run your whole business and be able to look and see what's going on and then click into things and drill into it even more and more. And that's kind of what all this represents. You keep seeing Snow Devil up here. I'll get to that in a second, but it's kind of a funny story with Snow Devil. Shopify, you probably know already, if you check the news or whatever, it's a big company. It's 1.7 million merchants right now, about 175 different countries, 7,000 employees. Kind of a fun fact. I joined the company just 3 years ago, and I'm senior to 72% of the company. It's kind of crazy, but that's how fast it's e-commerce and things have grown over the last few years. And then, sales on Shopify. Now, none of this really matters to you or I because, honestly, there's 1.7 million merchants. Yeah, there's a ton that are, the Kylie Jenners of the world and Gymsharks and all that kind of stuff. But the vast majority are like you and I. They're just people with a side hustle or people with a small business or a small brick and mortar that, wants to be able to sell online and things like that. That's probably 80% of what we do. The rest of them, there's always these big ones out there, and that's great. But the point is really more that as you scale and as you grow, you're not going to have to change platforms. And that's kind of the first note to take away. Whatever platform you're looking at, because Shopify may not be right for you, it might be, right. There might be another one that's right for you. But make sure that whatever you do, you're building the store, you're building the online website, the traffic, the omni-channel, all those things. You're building what you're going to need in a year or in 18 months. Don't build what you need today, because you're not going to be in the same place in 6 months, hopefully. And you don't want to have to re-platform or do this all over again in 6 months. And every 6 months, as you grow, you have to kind of make all these changes. Build what you need for a year from now, or build what you want to have for a year from now. That should be really one of the first takeaways. No matter what platform, no matter what e-commerce or website or Instagram page or whatever, build something that's going to grow with you, and make sure that it has the ability to scale. I mentioned Gymshark earlier, not Gymshark, Snow Devil earlier. So Shopify was actually created kind of like someone wanting to go offline to online. Toby Lutke, he's our CEO and founder. He's a coder by trade, but he was in Canada snowboarding with some friends, and he wanted to sell snowboards. Now this is back in 2004. So there wasn't really like e-commerce. He had eBay, that was pretty much all he had. So he wanted to sell these snowboards, and there wasn't really technology out there to do that easily. So since he was a coder, they actually rented a room above a Starbucks, jacked the Wi-Fi from the Starbucks down below, and wrote the code that later became Shopify. I mean, you fast forward a few years, and obviously he realizes that the better business is in Shopify, not in selling one snowboard at a time. But that's kind of how it started. It was just someone like all of us who was kind of frustrated and wanted to be able to sell their things online without having to jump through all these hoops and rings of fire and things like that. Um, which is kind of a cool story, because it's really kind of influenced how we do business now and kind of what we build now. We very, very much build things that are needed rather than just try to build cool stuff. Because cool stuff's nice, but businesses have needs. I did, you did, everyone does, and I think that's the important thing to keep in mind, is that you want a company that's going to have what you need, not just a bunch of flashy stuff. I always include this slide. This is actually a wall in what was the corporate office up in Ottawa, Canada. It's important for two reasons. One, it doesn't say e-commerce, it says commerce. And one of the reasons that's important is, especially now, and this sign was up there like this, 5 years ago, but there really isn't e-commerce and then in person, and there really isn't that line like there used to be, where I have an online and then I have it in person and then I have a pop-up. It's all kind of together, like we just saw on that Omni channel, that kind of cartoon. If you have a business, you need to be online. You need to have the ability to be wherever your customers are. If they happen to be in person, you got to be there. If they happen to be, on Pinterest, you got to be there. There really isn't this line of, well, I'm an e-commerce seller, or I'm a brick and mortar seller, or I'm one or the other. And 2020 was that really kind of nail in that coffin for brick and mortars that said, I don't do online, I'm only in person. They may not be in business anymore, right? That's the sad reality of it all. The other thing is that it says everyone. It doesn't say Shopify users, and this is the part I like, because Shopify is great. I drink the Kool-Aid. I believe what they do and what they kind of offer makes a lot of sense for most businesses, but there aren't any two businesses that are the same, and it's not going to be right for everybody. And I would be the first person to tell someone, hey, this may not be right for you, if I really thought that was the case. Because it really doesn't matter what platform you use at the end of the day. Our goal is to help you succeed. And the reason that's so important, like I mentioned earlier, is that if we could take any city, right, whatever city you're in, and we could strengthen all the small independent businesses by 10%, suddenly everyone's income gets better and their spending gets better, and families get better and communities get better and neighbors get better and other businesses get better. And it's just kind of this trickle effect. And we're able to help cities and counties and communities and states and cultures and people and all these things just by strengthening small businesses. I mean, Amazon's fine. Amazon don't need our 10%, but there's tons of small businesses that do need that extra 10% bump. And so that's why this says everyone, because it really is the mindset of helping all small businesses, regardless as to what platform they chose to use, or if they use Instagram versus TikTok or whatever that may be. It's really everyone. Now, all this being said, I've mentioned a couple of times that being online is really the key, and that's kind of part of why we're here. You need to be online, and you need to do that in a way that your customers can actually do something with your online presence. Just having a static, page that just has some information on it, that's great. But what is someone supposed to do with that, right? I mean, if you have this free WordPress page and I go there and I can read Justin's biography, but there's nothing for me to click on, nothing for me to do. There's not a link. I can't buy anything. I can't click to your Instagram page or anything else. I'm just reading a static page. That's not really being online, right? I mean, it's not really effective in the way that we'd want it to be. A lot of people have a lot of reasons that they're not online in the true sense, where they have a website and they're kind of managing e-commerce and commerce and bringing all these things together. Let's break down some of these myths a little bit, because a lot of these are really rooted in things that were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 12 years ago. We live in this era of digitalization, so people are kind of getting used to technology being out there. One of the businesses that's really boomed, of course, was e-commerce, was online selling. In this kind of digital era, I guess you'd call it, people are no longer thrilled by the idea of retail shopping. The idea that you are going to have this brick and mortar on the corner of Main Street and Main Street, and people are going to drive from everywhere to come find you, that's kind of an antiquated notion. There's people who still like that experience, and there's some verticals or some industries where that's really important. I mean, obviously, if you're going to buy a couch, you probably want to see it first and touch it and check the leather and do all those things. But many of our purchases, we just are comfortable buying online. And again, 2020 really accelerated that. So because of the success of these thousands of online entrepreneurs, well, there's still a lot that are holding back, and they hold back because they say there's all these reasons, right? Like time, it takes too long. It takes too long to convert everything over. Takes too long to build a website. It takes too long to do all this. It takes too much of my time to manage all this. The reality is that we could grab a coffee and we could have an online store. We could build it together by probably by mid-afternoon, 3-4 hours, certainly. Even if you're doing it yourself and you've never done anything like this in your life, I built my first one with Shopify while I was still in training with the company, and yeah, I probably did it over the course of probably the course of 2 days, little by little. Some people spend 2 weeks doing it, but that's really it. It's really fairly simple. It's drag and drop. There's no coding involved. If you can build a Facebook page, you can build an online store. And everyone's got a different life, right? I mean, school, work, boyfriends, girlfriends, kids, whatever. So, be realistic. You're probably not going to have a full 8 hours on a Saturday to sit down undisturbed and just crack this out. But if you're willing to put in a little bit of time, little by little, an hour here, an hour there, yeah, it really doesn't take too long at all. There's tons of tools, tons of educational resources. I'll drop some in the chat here while I'm thinking about this. I will forget. There you go. The first link up top, that's my website in LA. Tons of free workshops and classes and webinars and all kinds of stuff. And then there's also a place on the bottom there where you can grab a free one-on-one. So we can have a coffee, talk about, whatever your idea is for a business, or, what you have going on or something specific. In those one-on-ones, you can book those once a week and we can build a website together. That's totally a thing. It's totally cool. It's not that difficult. And that kind of puts us into some of these other categories. 5 years ago, people would say, well, it's too expensive, right? I can't do it. Because, yeah, I mean, it might cost you $5,000 to have a website built, but now you can do it yourself. And it kind of goes back to number one and then over into number three. All these, classes and webinars and workshops and things like that, they're great. They help with your knowledge. They help make you more comfortable doing it. But the truth is that it's already things you know how to do. It's uploading a picture from your computer or from your phone to a website, no different than posting on Facebook or Instagram. It's writing copy. It's filling in the blanks. Yeah, there's a little bit of strategy and a little bit of planning in terms of knowing what to say, but there really isn't a right or wrong answer. It's really just a matter of getting out there and doing it. Cost, let's talk about cost for a second, because I want to be transparent about this. Realistically, if you're going to start an online website, if you're going to start an online business, or you're going to add e-commerce to your existing brick and mortar business and kind of do the omni-channel deal, $14 a year is going to give you a domain, that nice sexy.com kind of thing. Most platforms are going to run you about $30 a month, give or take, Some are 25, some are 35, Shopify's 29. So, they're going to run you about $30 a month. And that's going to give you pretty much everything you need to run your online store. That'll give you all the pages, all the, apps and functionality and all that kind of stuff, shipping and all that kind of stuff. So those are your two biggest upfront expenses, that $14 a year and then $30 a month. The rest of it starts to happen in real time. So yeah, you're going to want to do some advertising and marketing, but that could be $5 a week. That could be $50 a week. Everyone's a little bit different, right? Depending on your difference, your vertical and your brand and things like that. Maybe you decide you want to, add a paid app or something that's really kind of special and give you kind of a very specific functionality. Shipping costs. So as you start to get orders, shipping will be a thing, right? But in theory, you should get the order before you have to do the shipping. So that shouldn't be money out of your pocket up front. Same thing would also go with things like taxes and things like that. I mean, I buy something from you, I pay the tax, so you have that cash in hand already. So the only thing really that's coming out of your pocket in terms of an investment that you're going to put down up front would be that $14 a year and that $30 a month. Yeah, hopefully you're going to make enough to cover that $30 a month pretty quickly. But realistically, in those first month, you may not, right? In that first 3 weeks or first, couple months, sales might be kind of slow as you're kind of growing and building and all that. So yeah, maybe you want to have 60 or $90 in your pocket so that those $30 a month, you're able to cover those first couple months. But that's really it. There's not a lot of cost involved in it. There's not a lot of time involved in it. In terms of knowledge and cost and confidence, it's really a matter of doing it. If we were going to build a store together, you would see quickly that there's a lot of the same wash, rinse, repeat kind of formats in building these platforms. Meaning, if you can load a product, you can load a department. If you can build a department, you can build an About Us page. If you can build an About Us page, you can write a blog, because it's the same skill set. It's literally the same form you're using for each of them. It's exactly the same skill set and knowledge. So it doesn't take long to build. Just depends on the person. I would say probably the average busy person, with a normal life, who's not just sitting at home all day with nothing to do except build a website. I'd give yourself 2 weeks, working on it, an hour here, 30 minutes there, something like that. Definitely doable. But if you have the time, you can do it in an afternoon. Cost, $14 a month or $14 a year for your domain, $29 a month for a store. And then the rest would be based on, whatever it is you're doing for your brand. Knowledge, tons of free resources out there, and you should use them. And that's one of the biggest things. Yeah, that's one of the good parts of 2020 is that so many resources kind of came out of the woodwork and suddenly became more accessible than ever. There's tons and tons and tons of resources out there. If you want to learn it, it's out there. There's webinars, there's people who will do a one-on-one with you and teach you. There's, it's all out there available. You've got to kind of grab it. And that should really help with the confidence, because you're not doing this alone. There are so many of us out there just trying to help small businesses that you're not going to be alone in any part of this journey. Entrepreneurship can be kind of lonely, but in terms of getting started and getting things set up, so many resources, so many people out there to help you. These really shouldn't be barriers anymore with any of this stuff. So real quick, let's go through some offline to online content. We've kind of set the stage a little bit about what the hell all this is and what we're doing with it and all. But let's go through some of these actual features here and talk about them piece by piece. So brand essentials. Before you jump into a platform, before you send a lease on a brick and mortar, before you do anything, you're going to want to make sure you have a good understanding of your company's direction, of your kind of your brand identity and what it is and what you're trying to say and who you're trying to say it to, and all those kinds of things. And if you ever spend any time talking to me, this will be something we talk about a lot over and over again. A good solid 80% of the businesses I sit with or I interact with have branding issues that are costing them sales later on. They just haven't created the brand or defined really the brand. So we're actually going to talk about 4. There's only 3 on here, but we're going to talk about unique selling proposition and what that is. We'll talk about photography and graphics, both lifestyle and product photography briefly. We're going to talk about copywriting very briefly. I don't mean like getting a patent or a trademark. I mean the actual kind of act of writing copy. And then we'll talk about target audience, because before you decide to do anything else, these should be the kind of the first place you're at. Now, A unique selling proposition right here is essentially anything that makes your brand or business or product different than the competition. And it can be anything. It could be, that you're a woman-owned business, Latina-owned business, that everything's handmade in your home. It can be like this, escaping human trafficking. It could be a social cause, like it's a recyclable or sustainable goods. It could be your return policy. It could be your range, your selection. It could be your pricing. It could be anything. It's just something you're going to lean into. You're going to stick your flag in the ground and say, this is how we're a little bit different than some of the others. This is something that we believe in and we're going to do different. Well, why is that important? In 2019, we started to see a trend of people wanting to shop small, buy local, and really buy from companies that they believed in, that kind of aligned with their own beliefs. 2020, June of last year, that really kicked into overdrive and became really, really important to a lot of people who want to support businesses that align with their own beliefs, that they feel good about supporting and buying from. Well, in order to do that, you have to be able to communicate that, right? Because otherwise you have no idea what a company believes in or anything else. It's kind of funny because Amazon now has changed the latest marketing campaign is that they are a collection of small independent businesses. I don't know about you, but I don't remember the name of the last small business I bought from on Amazon, because you buy from Amazon, right? It feels that you go to Amazon website and you buy from there. So that's not quite the same thing as what we're talking about here. Now, one additional thing to this, so this is all great, but sometimes with that unique selling proposition, you got to make sure you show value. So, if Kelly has a store and she's selling these beautiful handbags made with handcrafted Italian leather, that could be her unique selling proposition. But, so what? I mean, how does that value me, the customer? How does that benefit me, the customer? Does it age better? Does it last longer? Is it somehow more sustainable? Does it develop a cool patina? Does it retain its value more? Like, what is the benefit to me? It's really cool and admirable that you decided to use this expensive leather to make these bags, but for the customer, why do I care about that? And if you can show that, that's really kind of the home run. That's really the secret sauce of the whole thing. If you can explain to someone why we're different, and this is why that difference is valuable to you or your life, suddenly that becomes much, much more impactful, because nobody likes to walk away from things that are valuable. And now we're starting people on that pathway to putting some cash in your pocket and feeling good about what they're buying and all of that. Now, with something like this, handcrafted with love by young women escaping human trafficking, I don't really have to explain to someone why that's important or why they should feel good about supporting that. It's kind of self-evident, but not all businesses will be. So always make sure you're looking at things through that value lens with a customer. It's not just enough to say our shoes are good or our shoes are made from organic canvas, but why do I care? Like, how is that a good thing? If you can show that, you're likely going to get a sale, or a minimum, you're going to get a follower. As we go through photography, there's really just two parts of photography we really think about in business: lifestyle shots and product shots. In our product photography, we're looking at something that is mental. It's cerebral. It's justifying that purchase decision, it's validating that purchase. I'm looking at it going, oh, these buttons look nice. Yeah, that label looks good. The style is good. The colors are good. The quality is good. It's a mental exercise. When you get into lifestyle photography, that's where your mind starts playing a little bit of funny games with you. That's where you start thinking about that product as it would apply into your life. And you do that by seeing other people kind of living out a life you want to live, in a sense. So, we look at this and our mind starts thinking, well, that shirt looks pretty good on him, right? Or I like the way this fits on him. And immediately we're putting that shirt into our life, into use in our life. And if you think about it, it's been around forever. Like, think about a Vogue magazine or a Cosmo magazine. You open it up and there's that full page black and white spread. Beautiful woman on a balcony, silk dress, black and white picture, champagne's flowing, guy's got a tux, Eiffel Tower's in the background. You've seen these pictures, right? Everything, it looks like this amazing romantic kind of scene. And all the way in the back of the room, there's just a little tiny, tiny desk with a little tiny, tiny bottle of Chanel perfume on it. Well, what are they really selling you? They're not selling you the perfume, because they could just put a big old picture of Chanel and say, buy this now. They're selling you the lifestyle. They're selling you, you can have this, you can be a part of this, you want this, be a part of this and have our brand. It's gone on for years and years and years, all the way back into the Marlboro Man in the 20s and 30s. It's really effective. It's a great part of business and it's something to lean into. Ooh, what do we got here for a question? Do you recommend businesses already have their inventory categories defined before creating their sites? You should have at least an idea of the vertical. So depending on your business model, depending if you're going to do drop shipping or if you're going to do, you're going to make some things yourself, or you're going to have them sourced or whatever it may be, you might have a little more flexibility than others. But you definitely want to have some idea of a vertical. But more importantly, I think you want to have an idea of who your target audience is, because that's going to influence your photography, your website build, your fonts, your colors, your pictures, your copy, and all these kinds of things. So I think if you have an idea of this is kind of the stuff I want to sell and this is the audience I want to sell to, you can go ahead and start building your site without having to worry about having to do double work and things. It's just if you just went into it with no idea, yeah, you might have to go back and tweak the site a little bit later on. But it's easy to do. And if you're using drop shipping or if you're making products yourself, like you're a creative or a maker, um, essentially wiping out your products and starting over is not a big deal. It's just a matter of just re-entering some information. It's not a big thing at all, provided your business name isn't like, if you're t-shirts.com, you're probably going to be a t-shirt store, no matter what you decide to do. Well, I want to talk about copy real quick before we get to target audience. Copywriting is just as important or more important than photography in a lot of ways. Now, Instagram has taught us to shop with our eyes, so is Amazon, but copywriting is really what seals the deal. And the definition of copywriting is actually it's writing something strategically to persuade someone to take some form of action. It's click on this, tag a friend here, buy this now, whatever that may be. It's getting someone to do something. Really, really important to have great copy without getting too far into SEO and all that kind of stuff. It's important to have copy that resonates with your audience. So just to say we have a good shirt, it's not probably going to get it done. But if you're able to explain why your shirt, again, that unique selling proposition, why it's different, why it's unique, why it benefits them, it could be the angle of the collar, it could be the color, it could be the fabric, it could be that it's handmade on a mountaintop by Buddhist monks, whatever it may be. Like that's just kind of what you want to communicate in that copy. And you want to keep reinforcing that over and over again. But all this is kind of pointless in a sense if you don't identify your target audience. And to Ida's point, a minute ago, your target audience will influence your copy. It'll influence your photography. It'll influence the way your website looks and works and feels, the colors used, the fonts used, and everything else. I mean, we do it every day naturally, right? It's part of how we interact. If you talk to a pastor, you're going to speak differently to them than you're going to speak to your friend. We talk differently to a 10-year-old than we do to a 70-year-old. We do it all the time, naturally. It's very much the same with your customers. You want to speak in a way and show images in a way and have a website that looks and feels right so that it resonates with that target audience. I'm a 47-year-old guy. If I go to a website that's got kids playing with toys on it, am I really going to click around? Like, it just feels like I'm not in the right place. Doesn't matter how I got there or what I saw to get me there. It doesn't feel right. If you have a website and all your copy is perfect, your website's perfect, everything is amazing, and you send me an ad and you're selling women's jewelry, how often do I buy women's jewelry? I mean, Christmas, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. So that could also be a bit of a flop. Even something as subtle as fonts and colors. You might come to a website and the fonts and the colors feel, maybe more feminine or masculine or something that just doesn't quite feel right to you. Something that small can affect the way you engage with that brand. It can affect your mentality as to, do I want to click around here? Am I in the right place? And realistically, you have 3 to 4 seconds subconsciously to make a decision. When I land on a website, 3 to 4 seconds. What do they do? Why do I care about it? And is it the right site for me? And all this kind of plays into that. So knowing all this in advance, it's really kind of crucial. Think about even like a restaurant. If you're opening up a restaurant and a brick and mortar, it's the same kind of thing. You're going to have a very clear idea of who you think's coming, and that's going to influence the type of chairs you have, how many seats you have, what type of menu do you have, the type of food. Obviously, if you're reaching out to see if your target audience are seniors, You're not doing a bunch of spicy foods and things like that. So, all that plays into it. And target audience is maybe the most crucial part of it because it's the thread that weaves through everything. Now, let's talk about sourcing some products and things because we understand these platforms and why we need them. And we have a brand in place. So we have an idea of what's different about our brand and who we're trying to target and how we're going to communicate with them. But we got to think about how we're going to get these products. And there's really four, there's more than four, but we'll lean into four ways of getting products or sourcing out products. We're going to talk briefly about sourcing. We're going to talk about adding them to your business. We're talking a little bit about product photos again, and then a little bit more about copywriting, just to touch it home, bring it home. So the really, I know this is like the world's most generic looking cartoon, sorry, but we're really going to talk about four different methods of getting product to sell. I'd be more than happy to dive into a deeper dive into any one of these. These are great conversations to have in a one-on-one because honestly, all four of these might be right for you, or you can hybrid. You might manufacture things and make things and drop ship things. Like it can be a mixture of all these. Manufacturing is really, this is really where someone's making it for you, right? It's a factory. They're going to manufacture a product for you. It is sometimes a little bit expensive. It's a little bit daunting, but sometimes it's just the only way to do it. Maker, this is the best suited thing for like a do-it-yourselfer, someone who's got your own ideas, and you can physically produce the goods yourself. That's really the key here. Wholesale, it's a pretty straightforward thing. You're buying it from a third party. Essentially, you're going to buy a product from like a manufacturer or from a middleman supplier kind of deal at a discounted wholesale rate, 10, 20% below retail. And then you're going to flip it and sell it at a higher price. There's pros and cons to all of these for sure. And then drop shipping is one that if you've been kind of nosing around with e-commerce, you've probably heard a lot about drop ship. It's selling products you don't actually own. You don't store them. You don't buy them. You don't actually buy the product. You don't own the product. You don't have boxes of products sitting at home. You're essentially buying it from the manufacturer themselves, and they're shipping it directly to the customer on your behalf. So you don't have to buy the product. You don't have to ship the product. You don't have to do anything with it. All you're really left to do is to take care of your customers and, marketing your business. Let's break down each one of these a little bit more. So making your products, like I talked about, if you have unique ideas, if you have the resources available to do it yourself, it's a great thing. Making products is great for people who want full control over the quality, right? You're the only person doing it, so you can check everything. And it's a great way to keep your startup costs low. The downside, of course, it's time consuming. So really, if you're spending all day knitting socks, you don't have a lot of time to build and market your business. But think beyond that. How can you scale that? If you're knitting socks and your products are really limited to your own skills and resources, well, margin is going to be high, but your time is going to be being sucked up down a lot by having to make the product. So how do you scale? Do you hire 10 other people and you teach them? And is that realistic that you're going to find 10 other people and teach them to be as good as you are at making that product? Maybe, maybe not. It can be a little challenging to scale for sure. And it works well if you're in a collective or something where you have other people with a very similar skill set. But if it's just you and you're thinking, okay, 5 years from now, when I have 500 orders a week for these socks, either you're going to be looking at having someone manufacture them to your specifications, which can be done, or you're going to be looking at continuing to be a maker and just hiring people and training people and developing their skills, which is, it's a hell of a process. It can be done, but definitely not the easiest thing in the world. Another viable option for acquiring product is to have it manufactured. I mentioned this a minute ago. It's a good idea if you have a great, unique product idea or some kind of a variation of a current product that doesn't exist. It's really for people who have, in my opinion, you validated the market and you're really confident your product is going to sell, because manufacturing requires the greatest financial investment up front. When you go to a factory and say, I want you guys to make this for me, they're going to have minimum quantities and they're not going to make like 4. You're going to have to order 1,000 pieces, 10,000 pieces, a lot. You're going to have costs in prototyping. You're going to have costs in designing. They're going to do setup fees and all these kinds of things. There's a lot more upfront investment in having something manufactured. And if it doesn't sell, well, you're going to be out of that money. You're gonna have cases of these sitting in your garage, and that money is just something you're not gonna recoup. Your profit margins can really vary as well, depending on the field, depending on the product, depending on the manufacturer, the order quantities, all these. But it does potentially give you greater margin potential because you're essentially in control of the process, right? You can keep manufacturing costs low. You can choose the materials going into it. And if there's nothing else on the market like it, a lot of times you can actually have a better margin in these as well. But again, you're laying out all that cost up front, which is, it's scary. Let's just be honest. I mean, if you're going to put down $30,000 and have 10,000 pieces of something made, and you're just going to hope that they sell later, I hope that you validated that market, you've done some research, you've done some testing, and you're really, really confident this is going to be the right step. Purchasing wholesale, it's really simple. It's really straightforward. You're buying the product direct from the manufacturers, or they have salespeople, middlemen, things like that. Usually you're going to be buying it at 10 or 20% below retail price. It's going to vary sometimes. It's an easy way to get up and running quickly. It's an easy way to sell a variety of products and brands. It's also a good way to sell name brands. So in theory, if you want some brand recognition, you want to sell products that people are already aware of the names, that can be a good way to go. The margins for wholesale are typically pretty good, but they're not usually as profitable as manufacturing because you don't have the same amount of control, right? It's kind of a safe middle ground between manufacturing and drop shipping. There's pros and cons. However, just keep in mind that if you're buying from a salesperson and you're buying their products, well, they have a lot of other customers too, right? They have a whole catalog. So depending on the product, depending on, the field and things like that, they could be selling to another 500 businesses selling the exact same products at the exact same price points. So it can be tough to get a competitive advantage. Drop shipping, save this one for last. This is selling products you don't actually own, store, or ship yourself. It's a great way to get started. It's a great way to supplement existing business, or if you're making socks and you want to drop ship in some other products so that you have a bigger catalog. They also have great standalone businesses. They essentially do all the work for you. They're going to hold the product, make the product, ship the product to the customer. All you really have to do is take care of the customer and do the marketing, do the sales part of it. The difference essentially where you make the money is you may buy something for $2 through drop shipping and sell it for 10. That $8, that's your profit margin, which is, if you think about it, it's kind of free money, right? I mean, you didn't have to buy any product and you didn't have to ship any product. It's just money you get to keep in your pocket. There's pros and cons to it, and it's a kind of a whole separate thing. But one thing to remember with drop shipping is that you always want to order product samples. You want to definitely do a little bit of research on the product. And sometimes there's a pressure to chop down your margins because depending on where you're drop shipping from, shipping times could be a thing, or these aren't name brand items and things like that. So sometimes there's a bit of a pre-filled pressure to kind of cut your prices and affect your margin in that way. That being said, there's some great businesses out there that drop ship that we all shop from, and you don't know that you're buying from drop ship. They don't look like drop ship stores. If you ever heard of Movement Watches, MVMT, there you go. They started out as a dropship company out of an apartment in Venice. They sold to Movado, I don't know, a couple years ago for a gazillion bucks. But essentially, they dropship watches for like a decade, and no one really knew it. If you build your store right, and it looks like a good, legit store, nobody knows. And that's kind of the cool thing about it, is that nobody knows where you're getting any of these products from. I have no idea if Justin is making them himself in his garage, or if a factory is making them, or if they're coming from China via drop ship. I have no way of knowing unless he chooses to reveal that in his website. All I know is that I'm buying a product from Justin's store. At the end of the day, that's all I really care about, because I really am more involved and engaged in who is Justin, what his business is about, and all those kinds of things. It's not so much about where he got the product from. And sometimes that changes over time. You could have one of the advantages with a dropship store is that if you start out selling coffee cups and coffee cups don't work, you just delete all the products and bring in some new products, because it's just picking products from a catalog. Drop shipping is like going to Amazon, doing a search, picking up products, loading them into your store, and selling them. So if coffee cups don't work, delete the coffee cups and move on to something different. Move up to water bottles or glasses or dinner plates or drones, or whatever you want to sell. It's really easy to kind of flex a little bit. And I think one thing to keep in mind with all these is having realistic expectations. Most of these aren't something that you're going to launch a store and tomorrow you're going to make $10,000. That's not really the way any of this works. It's not really the way any business works, to be honest. With drop shipping, it's probably a little more challenging to scale and become that $1 million business than some of the others. Wholesale and drop shipping both, just because there's other people buying from the same place. There's a big selection, but it can be a little challenging sometimes. How do you connect the manufacturer products if you're going to try drop shipping? Yeah. So one of the cool things, and I think that's up next even. That's a good segue. One of the cool things is going to be integrations. And there are tons of drop shippers out there that integrate with your store. Because if you had to try to email a factory in Malaysia to place an order, you got a day and date and time difference, you have language barriers. I've done it and it ain't easy. I lived in Cambodia for 3 years, and trying to navigate language barriers in business, and it's not fun. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure, especially if you have money riding on it, right? So integrations are the way to go. I'll get into it in a second, but with drop shipping in particular, there are some really good integrations that plug right into your store. It's all automated. So when the customer buys the product, it automatically sends it electronically to the manufacturer. They take it off the shelf, they put it in a package, they ship it to the customer. You don't have to do anything in there. Like, there's none of that to be involved with. You don't actually have to connect with them. And you can actually have multiple manufacturers. So you're not limited to one manufacturer. You could have 15 products from 15 different manufacturers, and they're all just shipping it direct to the customer on your behalf, which is kind of the cool thing with integrations. You don't have to have this relationship and contracts and a net 30 payment and all that kind of stuff in the back end. Adding products as an existing business, a couple ways to do this. So if you have an existing business, if you have existing products, if you are a different platform, this is just kind of touching base on getting things into one place. You can do it through CSVs, which are spreadsheets. So you can essentially upload all your products into like a Shopify store or whatever on a spreadsheet. You can import directly from the wholesalers through integrations, like I just mentioned, or you can manually input them, which is just filling in the blanks, uploading a picture, and so on. Takes a little more time, but pretty straight ahead stuff. As we're thinking about product photography for your product pages, there's some common themes you should follow. You want high quality, clear images. I can't stress this enough. If you have a poor image, you're probably gonna get poor sales. If it's a grainy, fuzzy image, probably gonna be poor sales. Now, you don't have to be a photographer. They don't have to be amazing. We do photography classes, but you don't have to be, the next greatest photographer in the world, but they need to be a clear, high quality photo that shows the product, right? You see a lot of stores using stock photos from manufacturers, which, they vary. Some aren't in the right dimensions. Some aren't really the greatest photos. So you want to be consistent across your store and be critical. Like, pick and choose the photos you use, because they're going to represent you and your brand. You should always want to showcase and highlight unique details, that kind of unique selling proposition we talked about. So if the difference of these shoes, obviously some old school Jordans, but if the difference of these shoes is that they go up, an inch higher than anything else, or they're handcrafted Italian leather, whatever the unique selling proposition may be, you want to try and show that in your photography. And you want to try and show things that connect with your target audience. So I'm not a basketball player. That's not my life at all. So showing me a picture of someone wearing these shoes playing basketball isn't going to connect with me. It doesn't do anything for me, right? I'm not the right target audience, or the picture is not the right picture for me. It's a disconnect. Also, with your copywriting, which we'll talk about next, it's about resonating with that audience. Showing a variety of angles also helps, so you can show the different parts of the product. Making sure you have a zoom feature, which is built into your store most likely, so people can zoom in and see the features and the quality and the build and all that kind of thing. And then this is a little controversial, so I'm a little torn on this. Generally speaking, you see neutral backgrounds. White, light gray backgrounds make products stand out. However, as we see here, sometimes having that kind of textured background is kind of cool, and it can make your brand stand out. It can make things stand out. The trick is, you got to be consistent. You don't want some of your pictures gray, some of your pictures white, some of your pictures textured. It just starts to look a little bit hodgepodge. So you want to be consistent. This is part of your branding. This is part of establishing how your store is going to look and present itself. It's something to give some thought to. You can change it anytime, but just be consistent, even with the size. If you're going to go with the shape of a rectangle, then keep all of your pictures across your store that same. You've probably been to stores where some are squares and some are long and some are, it just looks a little unprofessional. And what we're talking about here, the subtext here is that we're building trust. And if you go to a website and anything about it doesn't look as professional as it could cost a sale, especially if your product's a little more expensive. If I'm charging $5,000 for this Italian leather handbag and you go and the site doesn't look quite professional, doesn't feel quite legit, the odds of getting $5,000 out of me, not so good. No problem, Justin. This is being recorded as well. So by all means, you can always watch the recording or replay back. And keep in mind, your customers aren't going to be in physical stores, so they're not going to be able to touch these products as well. Back to picture, there's movement watches again. So simple, solid photography, nice and clear, easy to look at, different angles, and then a lifestyle picture right in there to kind of show it on a wrist so you can see the scale of the face against the wrist. Super, super important. Copywriting, we talked about just a little bit. It's that strategically writing text to get someone to do something. It's really, really important to have good copy. And copy is hard. It's equal parts art and science, and it comes with time. Over time of doing it, you'll get better and you'll get better and you'll get better at it. As you understand your target audience better, it'll get better as well. It's not something you're going to nail the first time out, but it will evolve as your brand evolves. So that's really the idea of product descriptions, right? If someone goes to this product page to sell, to buy this product, that's part of moving from offline to online. Is you're taking someone from what would have been a in-person experience, touching the product, feeling the product, picking up the product in the store, but you have to give them that same experience. You have to be able to show them not only the brand is real and legit and trustworthy and it's a good quality product and all that, but they have to be able to see the same details that they would see in the store when they picked up the product, the stitching, the leather quality, the colors are accurate, and all those kinds of things, as well as showing it in their life, if possible, through lifestyle photography, like some of these things, right? It's an idea of showing, if I'm going to show this shirt like this, that's cool, but if you can see how it hangs on someone and how it fits, and maybe how long the sleeves are and what this bottom seam really looks like, because over here I can't quite tell, but on here and over here I can tell there's a bit of a, with some elastic or something along the bottom there. It gives you how tall that collar is. It just gives you a lot more context since I can't try on the clothes in the store. Now, designing your online store, this is really part of it that people kind of stumble with, and they think this is the hardest part of it all. Honestly, it's not. It's not as hard as you think, because in your mind, you probably already have an idea of what you want that store to look like. And it's our job to really kind of make that happen. There's more than 100 themes available. There's free themes, there's paid themes. There's no coding required. They all look great on a mobile phone or on a desktop or anything else. This is really the skin and bones of your store, kind of how it looks and feels, the vibe of it all. And the thing is, you can have 20 themes in your store. So you can have a theme set up for Mother's Day, a theme for Christmas, a theme for Hanukkah, a theme for Halloween, a theme for summer, and just toggle between them to change the look and feel of your store. And all you're really doing is just kind of changing the skin of your store. There's nothing else required other than going in and doing a little bit of drag and drop, right? Uploading a new picture. I mentioned earlier, brand trust is huge. It's something that you should always be cognizant of. We shop with our eyes. We shop kind of with that feel. And if you go to a website and you get that Oompa Loompa vibe, like this isn't so good, this might not be legit, you're not going to buy from it. 80% of your customers are going to be using a mobile phone. So always want to keep that in mind. And then very clear and easy navigation for people to really get their way around your store and be able to shop. You don't want to go into a store in person either, where you can't figure out how to buy things and you can't figure out how to walk around and shop and do any of that stuff. Brand trust, lots of ways to build brand trust, good, clear policies, legit payment methods, visual appeal is a biggie. It's got to look right, feel right, all those kinds of things. Having clear contact information, maybe having an About Us page or FAQs, places where I can reach out and get more information about you or your brand or your company and things like that. making everything very clear and easy to find. Don't hide the return policy. Make it very clear. Shipping policy, privacy policies, all those kinds of things. With a mobile experience, right now it's right around 67% of all transactions are happening on mobile. This is kind of fluctuating a little bit as we come out of COVID. That number's changing pretty drastically. Through 2020, that number was up to 80%. But just make sure you have a good responsive design. So any theme in our theme store is going to have that responsive thing where it's going to automatically format for whatever device. But I would definitely test your store out on a mobile and a desktop just to make sure you're happy with it. Make sure it looks good. Make sure there's nothing weird, any weird white spaces or anything kind of strange like that. Again, think about what the customer is seeing, not just getting something built, but what's the customer really seeing? What are they really engaging with? That's always how you're going to want to look at these things. And then with your navigation, with your menu, make sure they're really clear. Like you see this up here, that's a lot. It's kind of crazy. It's going to be tough for people to shop. Sometimes you give them too many choices, they don't make a choice. They're overwhelmed. Keep it clear, keep it simple. You can make these drop-down menus, that's fine. But keep it clean and simple and easily accessible, visually appealing. Something that I go to right away. And in those first 3, 4, 5 seconds, I understand what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to click, or what I'm supposed to do. I don't want to read 5,000 words of a business I've never heard of, a brand I've never seen before, in the first second I engage with the page. Like it's too much. You don't want to do that. On your homepage, it's kind of like the front page of a newspaper. It's the window display of your physical store. So think about your clear goals. Like, what do you want people to do? What do you want them to jump straight? Do you want them to jump straight into shopping, or do you want them to sign up for a newsletter or download something, or just kind of read the About Us page first? Like, what's important to you about your homepage? What do you want that customer journey to look like? If you've ever worked in a brick and mortar store, you pay a lot of attention to displays, right? When you walk in the front door, what's the first thing you see as you walk down the aisle? What are these different displays and where are they at and all of that? Exactly the same in your store. You land on a web page, and it's very much a, what do I want to engage with next? What do I want someone to engage with after that? Very clear call to actions like shop now, buy now, enter email address, whatever. Provide really easy access to shopping carts so everyone can go back and look. Again, all the contact details and all that stuff we talked about on the previous page, all of that stuff is really, really important to have really clear and easy to find. Whether you have it on the bottom of the page, the top of the page, the middle of the page, doesn't matter as much, just provided that it's easy for people to find and navigate and figure out where things are without having to click. The more you make people click, the less likely they are to buy from you, statistically speaking. Pages like About Us, Terms of Service, Privacy Policy, Contact Us page, FAQs, all these kinds of things, they're a great opportunity for you to tell your story, add in all these different personal touches. It's here that you really let people know who you are, what you're about, how to contact you, what you stand for, that unique selling proposition, right? It's really telling everybody, what do we do that's different? What do we do that's unique? These are just fill in the blanks. So you page, you add page, and it gives you essentially a template. You fill in the blanks, you upload a picture, and you have your About Us page. It's super, super easy to do. The more pages you have, the more information you're able to get out there to the customers. And it's not something you should sleep on, because it's really your time to kind of sell yourself sounds bad, but to sell your brand and kind of who you are and what you're about and why you're here and why we should care. And that's really what this is. It's telling your story. It's having content that lets your customers engage with your brand. So whether this is a blog, whether this is a About Us page, whether it's something you're doing in marketing, it's really content that gives people some insight into why they should care about your brand. What's different about your brand? I mean, you can walk into 10 stores and they all look and feel exactly the same. So why do you buy from one and not the other? Usually there's something in there that has influenced that. It's something about the brand or about the business or what they stand for. It can be the lighting, it can be the way it looks, the design, it can be anything. But there's something that was kind of unique about it that resonated with you. And that's what we're talking about here, is telling a story and really putting out content that resonates with your audience. That can be through, your branding, obviously talking about why your brand is different, right? Your core principles, your vision, your mission, your values, so people understand what your brand is really trying to achieve. But you want to create an authentic connection. Go into a website, go into a business with the idea that you're trying to build relationships, not trying to sell. Nobody wants to be sold to all the time. That's not a great feeling. That's like that used car salesman kind of deal. And that's not, any kind of good at all. You want to create an authentic connection with your target audience. And I don't want to go too far down a marketing road, but you want to create this authentic connection with your target audience, giving them some unique, refreshing content that they find engaging and valuable and interesting because it aligns with things that they care about as well. It's okay to start small. When you start talking about, Google and SEO and things, it's about consistency. So if you start doing a blog once a month, keep it going once a month. But if you start doing a blog every day and you can't sustain that and you kind of stop it, that has a bit of a negative impact. So at this point, think about what you can sustain long-term over a year, over 5 years, and that's kind of where you should start. Right? Give yourself some flexibility in this. But it's a great way to tell your story. Facebook, blogs, about us pages, things like that, where people can understand a little more about who you are, why you're here, and why they should care. If you're talking about something with a unique selling proposition that might relate to a specific demographic or community, or maybe you're reaching out to a very, very specific group of people who are really eco-friendly, then obviously that's another great way to kind of create these connections. It's doing things in your community. It's kind of being involved in the community, either online or real life. It's kind of contributing more positivity into that community. That'll build a lot of kind of brand awareness and engagement and trust as well. Now, I want to quickly go through marketing because we're getting near the end here and I'm going to start running over time. But I want to quickly go through a couple different kinds of marketing. Each of these is a whole separate presentation, of course, but there's really 4 types out there. And arguably, number 3 and 4 are part of organic marketing. But organic marketing, essentially, that's like blogs, social media, SEO and emails fall into there as well. They're essentially ways that you're going to align your content with your target audience. They're not a paid ad. It's just aligning what you're doing with the interests of your audience. Paid marketing, this is, you pay for a Facebook ad. It's not sustainable. Organic marketing is how you will build and grow your business over a long term. Paid ads are really something that's strategic. It's something that you would do to achieve a certain goal. I'm going to run this ad and I'm going to add 150 new newsletter followers in 7 days, right? It's there for something very specific. You literally can't grow and sustain a business via paid ads. You'll go broke. It's not feasible, not financially. It doesn't make financial sense on that. Email marketing. A lot of people say email is dead. Email month after month, year after year converts more than twice what everything else does. Across all of commerce, conversion rates hover right around 2%. Email marketing converts about 4.5%, 4.3% year after year. It's very, very powerful. It's very, very effective. It's very efficient. It's damn near free. And I can't think of another major brand that doesn't successfully use email marketing in some fashion or another, because it's so efficient and so effective and so cost effective. And then SEO. SEO goes back into the email organic marketing conversation. It's really setting up from keywords and metadata so that you get a better ranking when people search for you. It's kind of helping Google help you by sending traffic to your site. This is a little bit of the long game. It takes a little bit of work and time. It is something that you're not going to do tomorrow and suddenly you're going to see 10,000 people come to your site, but over weeks or months, you'll start to see that happening. And it'll be driving free vetted traffic into your site while you're off playing golf or sleeping or whatever else you have going on. A couple other notes to think about just as we tidy up here. Payment gateways. How are people going to pay for things, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to get paid. So if you're going to be selling online, you got a way to process payments. This goes a long way towards building trust. We've all seen people on Instagram selling things and they take payment via Cash App. And, that's okay, but it's not really scalable. And maybe not everybody wants to pay with Cash App, right? Maybe people don't have the app. They want to use a debit card like normal people. So having payment gateways in place are really, really Well, they do two things. One, they're secure. So you kind of build that trust. You know, if they're taking Visa and debit card and it's powered by Stripe or whatever, it's going to be secure. But also, it's going to send it to your account in a timely fashion. You don't want to wait 2 months to get paid. You want that money to come to you. A couple different ways to choose, a couple different things to think about with payment gateways. Type of products you sell is a biggie. Some gateways have restrictions on type of products. Primarily when you get into like CBD and things like that, that's where it gets a little bit funky. Sometimes like vitamins and things like that as well. But generally speaking, it's something to look at. Fees are a biggie. A lot of gateways will charge you per transaction plus a processing fee, meaning you might pay 2.5% processing fee, and that's pretty standard across the industry. But some gateways will charge you an additional 25 cents per swipe. So you're not really just paying 2.5%, you're also paying that extra quarter. Some of them are even more. So that's something to definitely look at as well. And then integration. You want a payment gateway that integrates with your store and your platform so that people don't leave like I'm trying to buy a shirt from you and it takes me to another website to pay. It feels weird. It loses clicks. It helps kind of damage trust and brand. Ideally, you want everything that integrates nice and neat and tidy. And then think about which type of gateways do you want. So I'll speak Shopify payments, Stripe kind of thing. You can use Visa, debit card, Mastercard, American Express, Diners Club. You can take Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Amazon Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, Venmo. What else? What else am I missing out there? But that gives you an idea of some of the things that are out there, and you can decide whether you want to take all of them, or some of them, or none of them. My advice is to take all of them for the most part, unless you have a specific reason not to. Make it easy for your customers to shop. Have primary gateways, have those secondaries like PayPal. So if someone's not quite sure and they want that comfort, cool, it's there. It doesn't cost anything else to have it. There you go. A little picture there, Shopify payments. There you go. So primary versus secondary, like we just talked about, I would just offer as many payment options as possible just to make sure that your customers have that flexibility and familiarity to shop and pay on the way they want to do so. The last thing you want to do is that they're forced to use something that they don't want to use or aren't comfortable using. It's going to really help your conversions as well. Shipping and fulfillment, which is key because I'm not in a brick and mortar store, right? Offline to online. So how do I get the products? No matter what you do, if you've done everything else right in your site, you still got to get the product to me. That vintage handbag, that's not going to come on its own. It got to be shipped. So let's break into this a little bit. Abandoned carts are caused largely by shipping rates. And that's that sticker shock thing. That's where people, I'm shopping in a store and I get to the end of the store and then suddenly, and into the transaction, and suddenly, wow, shipping is as much as the product itself. Probably going to get an abandoned cart. It's part of doing business. You're always going to have some abandoned carts, but you can minimize this by a good shipping strategy. Sorry. About 56% of abandoned carts are directly due to shipping costs being higher than customers expected. I was at a website yesterday, as a matter of fact, so the item was $20 I was looking to buy, but the shipping was $12. And I abandoned the cart. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but it just didn't make sense for what I can go buy it locally if I needed to. I was just being lazy. So why would I pay, 60% of the retail price just to have it shipped to me? It doesn't make a lot of sense. A lot of strategies you can lean into: free shipping over $50, for example. Carrier calculated shipping, where the customer is going to see real-time rates for shipping, and essentially they're going to cover the shipping cost. And then there's flat rate shipping, and this is done on weight or ranges or different types of products, and that's where it might be $5 shipping anywhere in the US. And you can hybrid these. You can actually have multiple shipping strategies because you may be selling couches and earrings. And so the shipping you would use for both those items might look totally different. You might do free shipping on the earrings that go in a little envelope, but that couch, the customer might have to pay for that couch shipping. It's pretty expensive to ship a couch to France or something. In terms of local shipping, international shipping, domestic shipping, it's exactly the same on your end. On the back end, makes no difference if you're shipping it to Oklahoma, Seattle, Miami, New York, or Paris, France. It's just a sticker that prints out when you fulfill the order. You stick it on a box and you're good to go. But speaking of the box, and this is kind of, I'm going to leave this at the end here, but speaking of the box, don't sleep on your packaging. It's the last chance you have to make an impression on your customer. You never know when someone's going to do an unboxing video, and the last thing you want to do is have a generic, crappy looking brown box that's all banged up, and you took a magic marker and wrote the name and address on it, and it looks, not so great. So give some thought to that box. It doesn't have to be luxury. It doesn't have to be a custom packaging, but make sure that the label is nice. Make sure that, maybe like in here, you throw a handwritten note in there asking for them to leave a review, asking for them to follow you on Facebook or sign up for your email marketing or something like that. It's a great way to kind of make a last impression, or a last first impression, whatever, but a last impression. It also validates the purchase decision, in that if you bought a $5,000 Gucci bag and it shows up in a generic looking brown envelope, you're probably going to think it's not legit. So it can also help with that. But with that being said, that pretty much, I know it's a lot of information we went through, but it's just us in here. So do we have any more questions? I don't want to keep sucking up any more time, but any more questions? Anything else we want to talk about? I'll drop the link again for a 101 in case Kelly or anyone wants to grab a little time that way. There's that one again.
Yeah, this was great, Chris. This was a lot of information, and definitely a great introduction into what you need to think about when you're wanting to move into an online platform.
Yeah, there's a lot, and a lot of this you probably have in place already and just don't really know it. It's kind of getting it all into place. Most businesses have some form of branding in place. Most businesses have a bit of a target audience defined already. It's just a matter of, kind of crossing T's, dotting I's, doing that whole part of it. This is the hardest part, is kind of getting started is the hardest part. After that, it's not nearly as challenging.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate you taking this morning to visit with us about this and share those resources, and look forward to having some additional sessions on other topics related to this.
Yep, for sure. It's definitely a little easier as we get into specific topics, not quite as broad. So it's, it goes a little faster. We can dive a little bit deeper into everything.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. Well, I think that's all we've got for today.
Yeah, looks like it. Okay. So if you need anything else, Kelly, there's a link there. Grab a 101 or something if you want to talk a little bit more. If not, then I'll see y'all next time.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Have a great afternoon.